She's one of the nicest ladies in show business and one of the funniest. My dear friend, Miss Phyllis Diller.
Phyllis Diller was America's first truly famous female stand-up comedian. When I first came to Hollywood, I could have had big parts, too. But I was allergic to silicone, a household name who rewrote comedy by turning her looks, her marriage, and her misery into punchlines. But she was hiding things. You've had some tough times in your life. How have you managed to maintain spirit of joy and of positivity? It's a habit to maintain a positive attitude, a system of thought. For more than 30 years, she made the same private trip to see someone she could never acknowledge in public. When those visits stopped in 1993, the heartbreak that followed explains why Phyllis Diller kept her greatest secret hidden for her entire life, and she only revealed it after her death. The unusual child who played piano at funerals. Whenever Phyllis Diller went on stage, fans expected jokes about her children. They thought she had 4 kids. All fair game for her act. She had 5. The 5th was a secret. A daughter she never mentioned, never joked about, never acknowledged publicly. Every Sunday, she drove to see her alone. No photographers, no questions. For over 30 years, this was the one part of her life she refused to turn into material. She learned early that pain could be profitable. Born in Lima, Ohio on July 17, 1917, to a 55-year-old father and a 36-year-old mother, she grew up in a house where silence was constant and death was routine. The house was filled with old people constantly. Her father's eldest brother, Sam, had fought for the Confederacy. That's how old they were. Funerals happened so often that death became ordinary. By age 10, she'd attended more funerals than birthday parties. She found it oddly fascinating. The makeup on dead faces, the flowers, the crying. While other kids feared death, she studied it, made mental notes, found humor in the darkness. This comfort with the morbid would become the foundation of her comedy. School was worse. Her mother made all her clothes by hand. When fur trim became fashionable, Phyllis pinned scraps around her dress hem. Her teacher stood her up in front of the class. "What is that?" Voice dripping with disgust. The other kids laughed. Phyllis remembered every second. Years later, she turned this moment into material. She turned everything into material. Music was her escape. At 10, the Sherwood Music Conservatory in Chicago accepted her. A child from Lima studying with professionals. She could play pieces that made adults stop and stare. But the loneliness never left. In that quiet house, surrounded by dying relatives, she'd started making up stories to entertain herself. Little narratives about the people she knew. They got funnier over time, started sounding like punchlines. She didn't know it yet, but she was already writing her act, already turning pain into comedy. The Great Depression crushed everything. Lima, Ohio in 1930 looked like every other American town watching its future disappear. Banks closed, stores emptied. Her family had nothing left. Phyllis was 13 years old, selling newspapers on street corners. Each paper brought in pennies. Pennies that bought bread. The Sherwood Music Conservatory cost money they no longer had. 3 years of training, 3 years of dreams ended in 1933, not with a graduation, with a letter saying she couldn't return. She was 16, and her professional music career was already over. She took any job that would have her. Cleaning houses, writing advertising copy, filing papers, whatever paid. The family name wasn't even real. Generations back, it had been Triber, changed for reasons no one remembered. She only discovered this as an adult. Even their identity was borrowed. Bluffton College seemed like a second chance in 1935. Music education this time. Something practical she could use to teach. That's where Sherwood Diller appeared. He showed up to their first date in his mother's car, paid for dinner with his mother's money. He had no job, no degree. He dropped out, claiming his professors knew less than him. Every rational thought told her to run. He was 26 years old, living at home. His big ideas never turned into anything real. His mother still bought his clothes. But the Depression made everyone desperate. Marriage meant survival. 2 people could live cheaper than one. That's what she told herself. They eloped in 1939. She was 22. He promised her everything. A house, children, security. Success was always just around the corner with Sherwood. The next scheme would work. The next job would last. She left college again. This time, there would be no going back. Within months, she knew the truth. Sherwood couldn't hold a job for more than 2 weeks. He'd show up late, argue with bosses, quit in dramatic fashion, then sit at home planning his next failure while she figures out how to pay rent. She'd traded her piano bench for a kitchen sink, traded concert halls for dirty dishes. The girl who played with orchestras was now just another housewife in Michigan, another casualty of the Depression, another woman whose dreams died young. 5 kids, food stamps, and a husband who refused to work. She thought marriage and children would fix everything. Peter arrived September 27, 1940. They were living in Ypsilanti, Michigan, where Sherwood had found work at a bomber plant making $25 a week during wartime rationing. Butter cost more than rent. Sugar was traded like drugs. New mothers got extra milk rations. She survived on them. Postpartum depression hit 3 weeks after birth. Some mornings she couldn't move. The baby screamed. Sherwood left for work when he bothered to go. Most days, he didn't bother. She'd lie there doing math in her head, trying to make $25 stretch across 7 days and eventually 5 children. The numbers never worked. They moved 8 times between 1940 and 1945, each address cheaper and smaller than the last. Sherwood couldn't keep a job longer than 6 months. A Lama Naval Air Station in California was supposed to change things. It didn't. Sally arrived in 1944, which meant 2 children and still the same $25 a week on good weeks. 1945 brought the first dead baby. 2 weeks old, premature, underdeveloped lungs. The doctors said these things happen. She was 28 years old, burying a child in a cemetery she never visited again. She went home, made dinner, and acted normal. Started writing for local papers the next week, earning $2 per article, 50 cents for advertisements. Money was money. By 1952, she had 5 children total. Each pregnancy was more dangerous. Each birth another gamble. Each child another person Sherwood refused to support. He had principles about work. Manual labor was beneath him. Sales was humiliating. Every job was wrong except the ones that didn't exist. Sherwood's inheritance arrived in 1950. $10,000 from a dead relative. Enough to buy a house outright. Enough to start over. He burned through it in 11 months on bad investments, doomed business schemes, and loans to men who disappeared. She found out when the eviction notice came, asking for $300 in back rent. 5 children under 12. No plan. Food stamps became routine. Powdered milk that tasted like punishment. Government cheese that required chewing like gum. She'd stand in line with other broken mothers. 1 kid on her hip. The older kids trained to stay silent. Her newspaper work brought in maybe $15 a week, 20 on exceptional weeks. She wrote at night after the children finally slept, crafting articles about cooking meals she'd never tasted, and home decorating tips for houses she'd never owned. Editors paid $2 if they bought the piece. Most didn't. The rejection letters stacked up next to the unpaid bills. She used them as scratch paper because nothing could be wasted, not even failure. The magic book that changed everything. $75 a week saved their lives in 1952. CRA in Oakland, California needed a copywriter. She got the job. Real money. Steady money. Enough to rent a small house, buy real milk, pay the electric bill on time. She created a 15-minute segment called Phyllis Diller, the homely friend maker. The name came from a typo someone made. She kept it. The show gave household tips that were secretly jokes. How to make dinner from nothing. How to hide poverty with humor. The station liked it, but editing errors killed it. The tapes never aired. Another failure to add to the pile. The Veterans Hospital in San Francisco needed entertainment. She volunteered, brought her piano music, prepared a whole set. The patients heckled her from the first note. Play something good. My grandmother plays better. Who let her in? She kept playing, kept smiling, finished the set, went to her car, cried for an hour. Claude M. Bristol's book, The Magic of Believing, changed everything. She read it during work breaks. The book said, thoughts had power. Visualization created reality. She pictured a white feather cape wrapping around her body, protecting her. Nothing negative could penetrate it. Sherwood had been pushing for years. You're funnier than Jack Benny, funnier than Bob Hope. Get on stage. Make us rich. He didn't want her to be successful. He wanted her profitable. She started writing down the truth about her life. 5 kids, no money, useless husband. But she made it funny, made it universal. The material came easily. Every burnt dinner became a joke. Every bounced check became a story. Every time Sherwood quit, another job became a routine. She practiced in the bathroom mirror while the kids slept. Memorized timing. Perfected pauses. The woman in the mirror didn't look 37. She looked 50. Exhausted. Defeated. Perfect for comedy. March 7, 1955 changed everything. The Purple Onion in San Francisco needed someone to fill 2 weeks. She auditioned, told jokes about her cooking killing people, her husband being useless, her kids driving her crazy. The booker laughed, asked if she could start that night. She said yes before thinking. Opening night. She wore a house dress from Goodwill. No makeup, hair barely combed. She looked exactly like what she was, a tired mother who'd given up trying to be beautiful. The audience loved it. They saw their wives, their mothers themselves. The 2 engagements stretched to 89 weeks, the longest run in the club's history. The night that created a star. The Purple Onion sat on Columbus Avenue in San Francisco's North Beach. Tiny basement club, brick walls, 80 seats maximum. March 7, 1950. Phyllis Diller walked down those stairs at 37 years old. She'd never performed stand-up comedy professionally. She was filling in for someone who Ken led. 2 weeks, they said, maybe less if she bombed. She wore a house dress she'd bought at Goodwill for $3. No special makeup. Hair pinned back like she was about to clean a toilet. She looked exactly like what she was, a mother of 5 who hadn't slept properly in 15 years. The audience saw her shuffling to the microphone and expected folk songs, maybe poetry. What they got was pure rage disguised as jokes. She'd been reading that Claude Bristol book for months, visualizing success, protecting herself with that imaginary white feather cape. Now she stood on stage, destroying her own life for strangers' entertainment. Her voice carried across the small room, high-pitched, desperate, like someone drowning who decided drowning was hilarious. The audience couldn't breathe. These weren't just jokes. They were confessions. Every woman in that room knew that exhaustion. Every man recognized that wife. She talked about her body like it was a broken appliance, her marriage like it was a prison sentence, her children like they were beautiful disasters. 2 weeks turned into a month. A month became 6 months. The owner kept extending her. Word spread through San Francisco. You had to see this housewife who made self-hatred into art. Lines formed outside. The club had never seen anything like it. 89 weeks straight. She performed 5 shows a night on weekends, 3 on weeknights. The Purple Onion made over $100,000 from her run. She made $100 a week. The same money she could have made typing letters. But something else happened. Talent scouts started showing up. TV producers from Los Angeles, newspaper critics from New York. They all came to see the woman who turned disaster into comedy gold. Jack Parr's talent coordinator saw her in October 1955. Called New York that night. There's a housewife here doing things nobody's ever done. She looks terrible. Sounds worse. The audience loves her. 2 weeks later, she was on national television. Millions watched this strange woman with a desperate voice tell them about her failures. They loved her, too. The Purple Onion run ended in November 1956. She performed over 500 shows in that basement, told the same jokes in different ways every night, learned what worked, what didn't, what made people uncomfortable, what made them howl. She left that club a completely different person than the one who'd walked down those stairs. She wasn't a housewife who told jokes anymore. She was a comedian who happened to have 5 kids, creating the most ridiculous woman in comedy. The transformation started with a wig. Wild horse hair that looked like she'd been electrocuted. Cost $50 in 1956, more than she spent on groceries in a month. But she bought it anyway. Then another, then another. Within a year, she owned 50 wigs, each one uglier than the last. She painted her face like a clown who'd given up. White foundation caked on thick. Lipstick drawn past her actual lips. Eyebrows plucked then drawn back wrong. She spent 2 hours every night making herself look insane. The worse she looked, the harder people laughed. Beauty was currency she couldn't afford. Ugliness was free. The cigarette holder came from a pawn shop, 12 and long, made of ivory. She never smoked, hated cigarettes. But every male comedian had a prop. George Burns had his cigar. Bob Hope had his golf club. She needed something. The holder became a weapon. She'd point it at the audience like a sword. Wave it like a magic wand. Use it to emphasize every failure in her life. Her clothes came from everywhere and matched nothing. Leopard print with stripes, flowers with polka dots, colors that fought each other. She'd wear evening gloves with house dresses, fur coats over nightgowns, shoes that didn't match. She looked like a thrift store exploded. That was the point. The transformation worked immediately. Bookings increased by 40% in 1956. Clubs that wouldn't book a housewife would book this look she created. The laugh became her signature. Low guttural. It punctuated every joke, told the audience when to laugh, gave them permission. She practiced it in the car, driving between gigs, recorded herself, played it back, made it worse, made it better, made it perfect. She delivered jokes at 200 words per minute, machine gun style. No time to think, no time to judge. She'd practiced talking fast, selling newspapers as a kid. Now she used it to sell misery as entertainment. The faster she talked, the less real it seemed. The less real it seemed, the funnier it became. Fong and the comedy album that shocked America. Disasters. Could make millions laugh at the truth everyone pretended wasn't true. She'd opened a door that would never close again. The hidden tragedies behind the laughter. While Phyllis was revolutionizing comedy, her personal life was collapsing in real time. Her daughter Sally talked to empty rooms, laughed at nothing, cried for no reason. 6 years old, staring at the walls for hours. Phyllis told herself kids were strange. The truth was worse. The voices started when Sally turned 11, not imaginary friends. Real voices only she could hear. They told her things, made her do things. Phyllis found her on the roof one night, found her with scissors another time, found her drinking cleaning fluid, because the voices said it would help. Schizophrenia doesn't care that your mother is famous. Sally got worse every year. By 1958, she was 14 and dangerous. The medications turned her into a ghost. 20 hours of sleep, 4 hours of confusion, no life at all. The institution papers were signed in 1960. Sally was 16. Phyllis drove her there herself. Sally begged her not to leave, screamed, cried. Phyllis walked out anyway. That night, she performed at 3 clubs, told jokes about her cooking, her husband, and her chaotic life. Never mentioned the daughter she just locked away. Every Sunday, Phyllis visited, watched Sally disappear more each week. The medication made her fat, made her shake, made her someone else. Phyllis paid the bills, told her jokes, and visited every Sunday. Never said a word publicly. Meanwhile, Sherwood was destroying everything else. Gambling debts piled up. He forged her signature on loans, borrowed from dangerous people. When they came to the house demanding payment, she paid with money meant for groceries. Went on stage that night and made them laugh about being broke. September 3, 1965, the divorce was final. 26 years of marriage ended with a signature. She was 48 and finally free. 34 days later, she wasn't. October 7, 1965, she married Ward Donovan. The wedding was small and fast. She needed to believe someone could love her. The real her, not the character, not the fame. Ward started drinking on the honeymoon, started disappearing at night, started seeing other women immediately. 22 weeks later, she filed for separation. He came back. They tried again, failed again. The cycle repeated for 10 years. The divorce wasn't final until 1975. During all of this, she was America's favorite funny housewife. The woman who made marriage look hilariously terrible while living something genuinely terrible. The audience thought Fong was a fiction, thought her complaints were exaggerated. They were understated. The truth was too dark for comedy. Death after death, a mother's unimaginable pain. Sally died in 1993, 49 years old, 33 years in institutions. Schizophrenia had destroyed her brain. Her body followed. Phyllis was 76 when she buried her daughter. She'd paid for Sally's care for 3 decades, visited when she could, watched her disappear piece by piece. Peter died in 1998, her firstborn, the one who arrived in 1940. Heart attack at 58. Phyllis was 81. She'd outlived her first child. The funeral was small, private. She told no one in the press. Went back to work the next week. July 4, 2002, Independence Day. Stephanie had a stroke. 54 years old. Gone instantly. Phyllis was 85. She'd helped raise Stephanie's 3 children. Now she was planning another funeral. Another child in the ground. She'd given birth 6 times. 1 baby died at 2 weeks old in 1945. 5 survived to adulthood. Now 3 of those 5 were dead. Only Suzanne and Perry remained. Perry had dyslexia, could barely read as a child, and struggled through school. But he made it, built a business, managed her affairs when she got too old. Robert Hastings appeared in 1985. Not a husband. She was done with husbands. A companion, someone to eat dinner with, play cards with, and watch television with. He moved into her Brentwood mansion. They lived quietly. No drama, no cheating, no fake heart attacks. Just 2 old people keeping each other company. Cancer took him May 23, 1996. She was 78. He'd been sick for months. She knew it was coming. Sat beside his bed, held his hand, watched him leave. Another funeral, another loss. But this one was different. He'd given her 11 years of peace. That was worth grieving. By 2012, the death count was staggering. For children, 1 grandchild, a companion, countless friends. She was 95 years old and had buried almost everyone she'd ever loved. Only Perry and Suzanne remained. And the jokes survived everything. The plastic surgery disaster and final transformation. She joked about her face for years, then decided to change it. Phyllis became one of the first celebrities to openly champion plastic surgery, eventually recognized by the cosmetic surgery industry for her advocacy. The first surgery almost killed her in 1972. Simple facelift, routine procedure. Her heart stopped on the table. They brought her back. She woke up paralyzed, couldn't move her face, couldn't speak. The doctors said it might be permanent. 6 months of therapy before everything came back. She went under again in 1973. 15 procedures between 1972 and 1990. Nose reshaped, breasts reduced, cheeks filled, eyes lifted, lips injected, eyeliner tattooed. Each surgery a gamble, each recovery longer. She joked about it on stage. Said she was like a car with parts from different years. The audience laughed. They didn't know about the paralysis, the infections, the pain that never fully went away. A lawsuit saved her in 1979. $5 million for music rights she didn't know she owned. She was nearly bankrupt when the check arrived. Ward had spent everything. The IRS wanted their share. Credit cards maxed. She was 62 and starting over again. The money meant she could keep working, keep the house, keep some dignity. Her heart stopped again in 1999. Not during surgery this time, just stopped. She was walking to the kitchen, fell down, woke up in the hospital with a pacemaker. 82 years old with a mechanical heart. She made jokes about finally being heartless for real. The audience laughed. They always laughed. 2002 was the end of performing. 85 years old. A back fracture made standing impossible. She'd done thousands of shows, made millions laugh, and outlived most of her audience. Time to stop. She didn't announce it, just stopped taking bookings. Let it fade away. On August 22, 2020, her heart finally quit. The mechanical one kept going, but the rest gave up. She died in her bed in her sleep. Perry said she was smiling.